Hello and welcome to the Bloodstream Podcast, a show serving the greater bleeding disorders community, brought to you by Believe Limited and Bloodstream Media, and made possible thanks to our presenting sponsor, Takeda. I'm your patient advocate and host, Patrick James Lynch.
And I am your healthcare advocate, nonprofit nerd, and your other host, Amy Bradford, reminding you to please speak with a healthcare professional before making any treatment decisions.
On today's show, the Hemophilia Federation of America's Chief Executive Officer, Dan Kelsey, joins us to preview HFA 2025.
Woohoo! We've got Dan back.
The National Bleeding Disorders Foundation and Believe Limited have partnered on a new digital advocacy storytelling project called Voices for Policy Change. We're going to tell you all about that. And we have got the latest I'm Fine segment with Michael Bishop. All that and more coming up on this episode. Welcome to Bloodstream.
Hey, y'all. As always, thank you for joining us today. And if you like what you hear, which I hope you like what you hear, please share this episode with all of your family, all of your friends, even like on Thanksgiving. Like maybe just play it at your Thanksgiving table. That might be too much. You might not want to do that, but it's cool. But anyway, subscribe to us so you can get that podcast right in your podcast player when it comes out and all the things.
You don't need to wait for that obnoxious uncle or cousin to pull out some TikTok video of a snake that slowly ate an armadillo. I don't know if snakes eat armadillos. You can get
pull
ahead
out
of that.
Like a clip from, I think one of our most popular clips is Your Bath Bleed. I've heard from countless listeners across the country this year that Your Bath Bleed was our most popular clip. So if you need to pull something out at Thanksgiving that's a digital clip, perhaps that.
I'm still waiting for MASAC to update their recommendations. But in any event, dear listeners, I want to remind you the Bloodstream Podcast is, in fact, made possible thanks to our presenting sponsor, Takeda. Yeah, that's right, Takeda. Takeda's got this website, bleedingdisorders.com, where you can learn all about Takeda's resources for and commitment to the bleeding disorders community. Takeda believes in a world free of bleeds. Amy Bradford, were you aware of that?
Yes, I was.
And they're dedicated more than ever in their efforts to offer a wide range of programs and support to help patients on their treatment journey. Wherever on that journey they may be, you can learn more by simply visiting bleedingdisorders.com. One more time, bleedingdisorders.com. And for their founding and ongoing support of the Bloodstream Podcast, I would just like to say thanks to Takeda.
Thank you, Takeda.
Amy Bradford holding it down in studio for us today. We got a lot of segments. We got a lot of acronyms. We got a lot of stuff. But something we didn't even touch on in the rundown. Stop the Bleeding, season 52. No, season 14 has now begun releasing. I think we're, 5 episodes in?
I think so, yeah.
And we're building on the animated world that we have been establishing the last few years. But Amy Bradford, one of these days, maybe that's a 2025 resolution, is to eliminate the board of it all.
I know, it's tricky.
Yeah, it may not happen. But can you tell us a little bit, what is Stop the Bleeding this year all about, and where can people find it?
Absolutely. As you all know, Stop the Bleeding is the first project, actually, that dawned Believe Limited and the work that we do. We're still going strong. This is season 13. Don't quote me on that.
I don't know. I just said 14. You said
14.
You know you're like
13, 14. It's tricky. I do have to say, I think this season of Stop the Bleeding is one of my favorites.
14.
We are continuing the world of our women and girls with bleeding disorders, with Rachel and Riley, our precious twins who have BWD. And this year they started a podcast.
Where did they get that idea?
I have no idea, but they started a podcast, and their little brother Liam is behind the camera, which makes me laugh. And they're joined by a friend who has just been diagnosed with mild hemophilia. And the conversations are all about hemophilia in particular, in women and girls. And we have terrific, fantastic guests. Our Flow co-host, Sarah Watson, is terrific. She's actually on episode 5. We have the hematologist, Dr. Angela Wyand from the University of Michigan, coming on, I think, for the final episode. Just really, we had Dr. Sidonio actually on. I think he was one of the first episodes, which of course, Dr. Sidonio is like luminary, phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And it's quirky, it's heartfelt, it's wonderful education. I think it's just this lovely thing to normalize this world that we're living in here. I think women and girls, as we've discussed many times on the show, really truly is the advocacy push of our generation, of our time here in the bleeding disorders community. And this is just like a sweet, sweet little season that really details that. It's wonderful. You guys can find it everywhere. We're all on socials. You'll be able to find it on our social, but you'll also be able to go onto the website. It's www.stbhemo.com. We'll put all of that stuff in the program notes. Please share with your community, chapter leaders that are listening. Please share. Feel free to upload those videos onto your own social channels. Feel free to share widely. We've had a couple of chapters actually utilize it in programming. So chapter programming, they play a couple episodes, and we've written discussion questions. So if you would like some more programming ideas, please reach out to me, Amy at BelieveLTD.com, or Hannah, HANNA at BelieveLTD.com, and we can get you some resources. This season was written and conceptualized by one of our producers and directors here at Believe Limited, Isabella Gadsby. It was an all-female crew. So we're just really proud of it, and we hope you guys can check it out.
Tremendous. Thank you for that, Amy.
Yeah.
We'll go now from the animated world of scripted entertainment about women and girls with hemophilia and bleeding disorders to an unscripted live action world of videos to make a difference on the advocacy side of things. So Believe Limited has been working with the National Bleeding Disorders Foundation. In particular, I believe their policy team, Amy will correct that in a moment if need be, on this program called Voices for Policy Change. For those who attended BDC, you may have noticed in the program there was a session, I believe it was part of the pre-conference track, like on the Wednesday or before opening session Thursday, Amy, where you did some presenting on the Voices for Policy Change program, which had just launched at that time, now a few months ago. So still relatively new, and something that I believe is going to have a lot more energy behind it now that it's launched in 2025. So please tell us, what is Voices for Policy Change? What should people know about, and where can they go to learn more?
Sure. Well, it's November. Here we go. It's November. We've just had an election.
Really?
We're gearing up. I know. We just did a whole thing.
When was that?
Democracy. It's like a whole thing. We're in open enrollment. So insurance, we know we're in open enrollment season. January, February, March, April is always a whirlwind when it comes to insurance, reimbursement, trying to get everything figured out, waiting for the shoe to drop, if you will, in terms of what hidden policies and programs are, lurking in our insurance plans. And then, of course, because of the election, this is typical. Anytime a new administration comes in, policy, our objectives don't change. What we want to what we want to push as a community doesn't change, but our tactics do change. Things might slow down, things might escalate. And so we're in the thick of it here in November, December, and Q1, Q2 next year. And so here at Believe Limited, we partnered with NBDF to create a new digital storytelling platform for you all, for your chapter leaders, to really utilize storytelling in our advocacy efforts. As you guys know, our superpower is our stories, how things affect us personally. Nothing solidifies an idea like building a narrative around it. And so here at Believe, since this is our bread and butter, we wanted to create, digital package stories for you all to tell on your social media channels. Even if you're sitting in a meeting with a decision maker, we wanted to have these resources that you could utilize to really tell the issues that are affecting the bleeding disorders community in a small, digestible, packaged way that will get information across. We've created this resource. It lives on the NBDF website. I'll tell you all about that in a minute. We've broken them out into 3 different buckets. We have some videos that actually have patient stories. We've worked with some chapters to have patients that have been affected by some of the issues that are happening here in the bleeding disorders community. A lot of you have heard of the accumulator issue. A lot of you have heard about the maximizer issue. So we had some folks tell us their personal stories stories, and we have those on the website. We also have issue and policy explainers. So much of this policy stuff is convoluted. It is layered. It's very complex, and we have created an entire library of explainer videos from advocacy experts that really break down what are these issues for an educational perspective. Like if you as an advocate, you would like to go to your own state days or you'd like to go to Washington days and you would like to understand exactly what these accumulator and maximizers are doing, this will be good education. But also if you are working with a specific decision maker, you're working with a Medicaid, Medicare, representative, if you're working with a health plan in some way, this can be a really good explainer to have them understand how it impacts our community and how we can really move through these issues. And then we have some evergreen content. We have insurance information. We have some stuff about open enrollment. We have some stuff about the differences between medical benefits and pharmacy benefits. We have some of those explainer videos that can really be useful as we're going through this open enrollment process. So I wanted to show you just a little compilation of our patients, of some of our patient stories, so you get a better idea of what the program will be. So let's listen to that video.
We resorted to using a credit card to cover medication cost, as failure to pay meant no medicine.
We need serious healthcare reform. Accumulators and maximizers are pushing families to the brink of bankruptcy.
The uncertainty and financial strain it imposes upon us has not just been overwhelming, but it's been downright crippling.
My message to all parents facing similar struggles is this: never stop fighting for your child.
So anyway,
Patrick,
neat. I'm so excited about it. Yes, I really, they're beautiful. And I should mention that we have partnered with NBDF and that this program is generously supported by Sanofi, who very much believes in the power of our voices for change. So we really want to thank Sanofi for helping spread the good juju in terms of our advocacy efforts.
What happens after you tell your legislator your story with Carson Knight? That's a good topic, because that's something
really
I always
one.
wonder about. You know, you leave the room and you gave them a card and you send that follow-up email if you're a good student. But what actually happens? Like, 100%. That's a great topic.
And I actually, that video is fantastic because there's actually a system.
You don't say.
It really is. There really truly is a system for those decision makers to hear the points that each person told and the story. There really truly is. So if you tell stories to the staff member, there really is a system to get all of those cataloged. So anyway, it's democracy. It really is a thing.
Very, very nice, well laid out and organized. And I'm imagining, Amy, just as one last question, that this is something that NBDF will be pushing out information about, updating, sharing with community in 2025. Is that the concept?
That is the concept. And again, I don't think I actually told you where it will be. The site is live. The videos are live. You can find it at NBDF's website. It is www.bleeding.org. It's under the advocacy tab, under how you can take action. And it's called Voices for Policy Change. We'll put all of this information in the program notes. Please check it out. All of the videos are available on YouTube. And we would love for you to share with your resources and your communities as much as possible.
And if you follow that flow, as Amy just described, not only will the How You Can Take Action page bring you to Voices for Policy Change, you can also learn more information on that same page about Washington Days, the day of National Federal Lobbying that takes place in Q1 of 2025, advocacy do's and don'ts, steps to take for grassroots advocacy, and more. So again, bleeding.org, the advocacy tab, click How You Can Take Action for more on the Voices for Policy Change program and beyond. And Amy, thanks on our side for leading that on the Believe Limited team. It's very cool to see what it's become.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was a joy.
All right. Well, let's now shift from the National Bleeding Disorders Foundation to the Hemophilia Federation of America. Listeners may remember we had Dan Kelsey on toward the beginning of the year when HFA was going through a number of big changes and making some news. So we heard from Dan to talk about what was happening behind the scenes at HFA. Well, he reached out again. We spoke briefly during BDC in Atlanta, and he asked if he could come back on to share a little bit with you all about what's happening at the organization in 2025. And so now we will hear from Dan Kelsey, CEO of HFA, with the vision for 2025. Bloodstream listeners, I am joined once again by the Hemophilia Federation of America's Chief Executive Officer, Dan Kelsey. Dan, we're talking on a Friday in mid-November. Happy mid-November Friday. How are you?
I am doing well, Patrick. It's it's been a long week and a long year. But hey, it's great to be here.
We were just chatting offline briefly about how the holiday times we tell ourselves things are going to slow down, but it seems as though that doesn't actually happen. The busyness maybe changes shape a little bit, but slow is hardly an accurate word to describe this period that we're moving into, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, in 2024, when I was last on, was things were difficult this year, and you were at Symposium premiering on the Shoulders of Giants, and attendance was down at Symposium, but I think in combination with your premiere and from what we heard from the people who were in attendance, they had such positive things to say, and it was such a relief to hear some positive feedback about what was happening, and for people to know that hey, we're still around, we're not going anywhere, that we're still committed to helping out the community, and that really was a kickoff to what's been a busy but a year of understanding for me, and really moving away from just being neck deep in operations and just trying to get the ship turned around, to really understanding the community even better, and really having that opportunity to move forward. Plus with Phil Gattone starting over at NBDF, I've had some great conversations with him. So I think there's going to be some opportunities for working together on some things, and trying not to duplicate so many of the same services and so on, because I think that as we look to the future, things are not going to get easier, and we don't have we're coming up to Thanksgiving, so I can use the term cornucopia of new medications. Hey, how do you like that? There's not all of these new drugs and medications that are coming out for the community. So it continues to be challenging. And then, as we prepare for the new administration coming in, there's concerns about some of the cabinet appointments, and what does that mean for the future of healthcare and insurance and drug approval and so on? What kind of impact is that going to have? There's also talk about putting a tax on excess revenue for nonprofits. So if that happens, then not only are we facing things from an advocacy perspective, but also just from an internal perspective as well as a nonprofit. Really what it means is kind of going back to realizing that we're all stronger together, and we've got to really face things together and work together on things. And it's part of our focus for 25. As uncertain as things are, one of the things that we decided to do was really just get back to basics and focus in on executing well and expanding our base, and really just trying to reach those new parents where all of a sudden they have this newborn and there's no history of bleeding disorders or hemophilia, and they've got this little baby, and all of a sudden they have this diagnosis of hemophilia, and they're up at 2 a.m. searching the internet trying to look for some reliable information. Where are they going to find that? We want to make sure we're there for them. And And I know you've done some great work on reaching younger adults and kids and so on. So, just trying to find ways that we can reach more people and be there for them. So I think that there is so much collaboration that can be done and so much work that we can do. And really that's what we are continuing to focus on in 25. We just opened registration for symposium for 25. So last year we were way behind on doing that because of all of the changes that were happening.
Sure.
This year, we're up on that. Registration just opened yesterday. And so now we're on that roller coaster. You can hear the ticking sound as we're going up that first hill. So yeah, we're hoping for a really great symposium in San Diego at the end of March. What's there not to like about that?
I mean, you're not going to hear this Los Angelino complain whatsoever about a meeting in San Diego.
Yeah.
You may want to do them there every year. I don't know, just something to
Yeah.
think about, just throwing ideas against the wall. You've said a lot, and I want to kind of double click on a couple things. You made a comment about how the challenges aren't stopping or something to that effect. And that really landed on me because I think sometimes as a community, we can get a little wooed into complacency. We can kind of, I'll speak for myself. I can forget that I biologically have a life-threatening chronic disease that if untreated would have likely taken me out before age 20. That is still biologically my reality, however good my treatment is, however good my dosing is. And that is predicated upon the idea that I have access to said treatment. So there's always going to be challenges, but the nature of the challenges change. And I appreciated hearing you say that in your own words, while identifying that at a minimum, one of the challenges we can anticipate going into next year is that with a new administration, there's always the impact that will have on healthcare and health policy. But specifically, we'll say, the administration coming in is more unusual than most. So there's maybe all the more of an open question about what is this going to mean for all of us. All that said, I want to ask you a follow-up, Dan, about, you mentioned like a year of understanding, and that popped for me as well. Is there something you can share with us, an encounter you had with a patient, a family, a caregiver, some kind of exchange that you've had since we last spoke to you, 6 months or so ago, that was a before after moment for you that increased your level of understanding or helped shed some light on something about this community? I'd love to hear anything that sparks for you.
Yeah, there's actually a couple instances, and the first one that comes to mind is something that was just a testament to the hard work that everybody put in around symposium in Indy. Prior to symposium, one of the longtime community members came over to me, and I just met him online before with email. And so I said hi to him, and he said, I am really watching this meeting this year. A lot of my friends said, nope, they're not going to come because of some of the changes. But I thought, no, I'm going to give them a chance. I'm going to give you guys a chance, and I hope that it delivers. And so I said, well, we put in a lot of work on it. Then 2 days later, 3 days later on the closing night, he sought me out in the big, room that we were in and came over, and he said, I wanted to let you know this is probably one of the best symposiums that I've ever attended. He goes, it was just so nice. The education was great. It seemed like the feeling among everyone was just tremendous. And he said, and this evening, this is all we need, is just to be together. We don't need anything really extravagant. It's about community, and that just really struck me. Also, during the meeting, during symposium, as you know, going into that, both Luke Runyon and myself
Luke
had
being the board
received
chair for
great.
for our audience.
Yeah, and we had really received some negative press about it, and there were some things where there were just some misunderstandings, and so Luke addressed it head on during his opening comments, and I think people appreciated the honesty. And then during the course of the meeting, there was a point where, after the celebration of life, some of the old timers, I'll call them, or some of the people who've been around for a very, very long time, wanted to just sit down with Luke and myself and find out what the heck's going on, and so we had just a very open and honest conversation with them. And I think they walked out saying, okay, we get it. We understand where you're coming from now. And I think that they realized that, just like any other organization, there are challenges that we had to face, and that we're facing those challenges, that we're not abandoning the community, and we don't have any other motives, nothing nefarious or anything like that. So it was positive to know that these individuals who are just so passionate, and were many of them went through the bad blood of the 90s, that they understand where we are and where we're going. So yeah, that was a real positive. And then I also attended the Texas meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and that was so nice to see everyone there. And of course, everything is bigger in Texas. So
Yeah, it's
so
not just a
yeah, that
saying.
yeah. So it was great being there and meeting everyone, and just having a chance to see other community members and so on. So yeah, there have been a couple things that are really have allowed me to better understand the community, and truly appreciate the challenges that people are facing. And I already knew how passionate people were about the community. And so yeah, those were a couple things that really clicked for me during the course of the year.
And it's neat from my perspective as an adult patient approaching 40, as a caregiver of a young daughter with hemophilia. You just talked about new families and being cognizant of what their needs are as they're looking for answers. And you referenced conversations that you and Luke were having with the old timers about what's going on and what are the needs of the community. So I just want to reflect. I hear you talking across the life cycle, so to speak, of the community, which gives me confidence to hear you, thinking across the spectrum. So that's pretty neat. With the minute or so that we have left, I do want to reiterate. So Symposium 2025 registration is now opened. It's taking place in San Diego, California, which I highly recommend visiting. And I recommend visiting it March 27th through the 30th. You can learn more at hemophiliafed.org, or you can check out the link in the program notes or the copy to the social media post if that is where you are consuming this. We spoke a little bit, Dan, about 2025 challenges, getting to even make registration for Symposium open up, sooner than it did for last year. So you've already noted a couple things going into next year that are maybe unique from the start of 2024. Can you highlight another few things that are top of mind for you, or that you would like to be top of mind for the community as we move into 2025?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we're really going to focus on is education. I mean, that's what we're known for, and of course, advocacy is going to be a major topic as well. So really, the marriage of those two items. And my VP of advocacy and policy Mary Catherine Moffat is just phenomenal when it comes to grassroots advocacy. And with more and more getting pushed down to the states, it's really going to come down to the grassroots advocacy efforts. And so we've got a great team in place for that. I feel like we've got a really good team overall in place for 2025. And then pairing that with education, we're hoping to implement a new learning management system and be able to offer more of our education through mobile platforms and so on. Uh, so yeah, I think there's a lot of neat things planned for 25 that's going to really help us reach more people or allow you to interact with us more easily.
Well, I'm excited for you and for the organization. 2024 had unique challenges, we'll put it that way.
Mhm.
And now that those challenges have been met, now that you've had some time under your belt in the community in this role, I'm excited to see what comes of this next chapter in HFA's story. So thank you for proactively chatting with me about coming back on to speak with community. Again, as a community member, I appreciate your proactive interest in doing that. And we'll be sure as we move into next year to have you on again. You or someone from HFA before symposium, maybe as the agenda is close to finalized, we can highlight some key sessions. And then, of course, we'll be there again and we'll be bringing parts of the conference to the audience here on Bloodstream. So looking forward to all of that and more, Dan.
All right, likewise. Thank you so much, Patrick. I appreciate it.
You got it. Have a good holiday season and a
Okay.
happy new year.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And listeners, hemophiliafed.org is the website that you can go to for updates on what's happening over at the Hemophilia Federation of America.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Patrick. Moving on to our next segment, we've got I'm Fine with Michael Bishop. I'm Fine aims to challenge entrenched ideas around chronic resiliency and satisfaction with suboptimal outcomes by inspiring people with hemophilia to seek education and truly consider the possibilities. Sanofi seeks to expand the idea of what's possible for the hemophilia community and take a deeper look at the science behind hemophilia and an important connection between factor activity levels and potential activities at levelsmatter.com. Now, on to I'm Fine.
Hey everyone, it's Michael Bishop again, and I'm back with another segment of I'm Fine. During my last segment, I talked about community, specifically the hemophilia community, and how important it is to stay connected with the hemophilia community despite our perceived differences within it. I spoke a lot about the importance of not feeling alienated. But since we already talked about not feeling disconnected from other hemophilia patients, I think it's time to look closely at our friends and family and how to not feel separated or disconnected from them. How to feel acceptance and love from the people that you love and from the people that love you. I've often felt like a burden to other people in my life. But I think more insidious than that is feeling like an inconvenience. Burden is such a heavy word with a ton of negative connotations. Inconvenience is also certainly a pejorative when directed at ourselves or others, but on the surface it doesn't sound as bad. Consequently, I think it's easier to throw that word around when we're thinking of ourselves, particularly when it comes to having a bleed or having limited mobility because of joint damage. It can be hard to think about yourself as a burden, but I think it can be deceptively easy to think about yourself as an inconvenience. And getting rid of that feeling can be difficult. It was hard for me, and honestly, it led to me canceling plans, hating my body, and ultimately not accepting myself. Growing up, I often felt that way, and when I was planning this episode, I was trying to come up with one specific example of a time in which I felt like that. But honestly, it happened so frequently, they all kind of blend together. It's hard to remember one specific time. But like on the weekends in high school and in college, when my friends would want to go to parties or to some social event somewhere. If I had a bleed, that meant my friends had to choose between hanging out with me at my house or leaving me alone and going to the parties. And there were many times where we had to change plans because a bleed happened suddenly. Like we were supposed to go to a museum or a zoo or just go see a movie, and then the day had to change because I was hurting or I couldn't walk. These things can be small. There's nothing inherently traumatic about having to change plans or see a movie at a later date. But when it happens over and over again, you can start to feel like you're affecting your friends' lives. But I think the biggest thing for me has always been crutches and wheelchairs. Having to lug those things around because a bleed might happen on a trip honestly sometimes felt like the worst part of having hemophilia. I remember when I was in my mid-20s, I planned a weekend trip with a girlfriend. We were going to a big city, we were going to see some friends, we were going to explore and just have fun. But I just couldn't bring myself to bring my crutches or my wheelchair. I wasn't comfortable enough with her to tell her that my knee might bleed and I might need one of those things. I assumed she was going to think, oh my gosh, my boyfriend really is disabled. I don't know if I can handle this. I was always so worried that the people around me were going to ignore everything that they liked about me and not want to have me around anymore just because I had bleeds sometimes and couldn't participate in every aspect of life in the same way that they could. And suddenly these crutches and these wheelchairs felt like a tangible manifestation of the limitations that hemophilia had damned me to experience for the rest of my life. And sure enough, I got a bleed on the second day of that trip. And rather than still experiencing the city or hanging out with friends, just having me on crutches, we had to hang out in the hotel for the rest of the trip. And I think not being able to express your need for things like this, what boils down to essentially acceptance and assistance from your loved ones, now feels a little bit like immaturity to me. But I think it only feels like immaturity to me because it took me so long to realize what the root cause actually was, which is not being able to accept myself or love myself. Now let's cut to a year or so ago. I'm 32 now, so I was 31, maybe 30, and I was going to a friend's wedding. I was traveling by myself, but I knew a bunch of my friends would be there. In particular, my two best friends. Two wonderful women who have really helped me learn to love and accept myself. And this was a time when I was on crutches or in a wheelchair every single day. I hadn't socialized much in person since that had been the case. But of course, I couldn't miss a wedding. So I loaded up my wheelchair and my crutches, which is not an easy thing to do when you need one of those things to move around. And I headed to the wedding. When I checked into the hotel, I used my crutches. I didn't want to get my wheelchair out unless I really needed it. So I somehow managed to get my suitcase, my suit, and my backpack up to my room with my crutches. Once I got there, I texted my best friends to let them know that I was checked in and in my room, and I asked if they were there. They said they were, and they invited me to their room so we could hang out while they got ready. I told them that I needed some time because, of course, I hurt my knee as I was getting upstairs, trying to crutch with everything that I was carrying, and that I needed to put my stuff down and go get my wheelchair out of my car, and then I could come meet them. And one of them rushed to my room, grabbed my keys, went downstairs into my car, got my wheelchair, and brought it back up to me. When I got to their room, I told them that I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get on the shuttle bus to the actual wedding venue, and they had already thought of everything. They said they'd help me get my wheelchair up there, they would ride with me, they would make sure I was okay, and they made sure I was good. And I ended up taking my crutches to the reception, and they sat with me the entire time. And I didn't even thank them for it. And it's not because I was ungrateful. It's because they truly seemed like they did not need or want to be thanked. They weren't forced to sit with their friend because he couldn't get up and dance with everyone else. They were just sitting with their friend. And we had an amazing time. And I left that night and I got to my hotel room and I cried because I truly felt loved and accepted in a way that I realized that I hadn't before. Now, do I think these two friends are particularly emotionally intelligent and kind and went above and beyond to make me feel loved? Yes, honestly, I do. But looking back on it, I know they were able to be that kind and supportive because I had opened up to them plenty of times about me feeling like an inconvenience in people's lives in the past. I had essentially told them that I needed support without directly asking for it. And thankfully, they were smart enough to figure that out by themselves. But ever since that night, I've been more willing to directly tell people what I need and to not second guess their willingness to help or their acceptance of me. I don't know how many times someone has rolled their eyes when I told them that I couldn't go to something or that I would be showing up on crutches. But I know how many times I've felt like someone was rolling their eyes when I told them that. And that's what really matters when it comes to my ability to ask someone for help. If you're listening to this or watching this, and you've ever felt like an inconvenience, please do not wait as long as I did to start loving and accepting yourself. If someone loves you, I know this sounds cliche, but they love every part of you. Work isn't work when it's being done to show somebody that you love them. So ask your friends for help. If you're lonely, tell them that you want them to hang out with you at the reception or wherever you are. And at the end of the day, thank them or don't, because maybe they don't need to be thanked. Thank you very much. I love you. Please love yourself too.
Sanofi aims to raise the bar for patients living with hemophilia. Reimagine what's possible by visiting rareblooddisorders.com to hear more about Sanofi's dedication to the bleeding disorders community. Thank you, Michael Bishop, for hosting the latest installment of the I'm Fine segment. Again, thank you, Sanofi, for supporting that segment. I want to thank Dan for coming on to chat with us about all things HFA in 2025. I also want to give a shout out to Nathan and Katie over at NBDF for their extraordinary support and partnership on Voices for Policy Change. And I hope you all check out that platform and its resources. Thanks as always to our presenting sponsor, Takeda, bleedingdisorders.com. For more, in case you didn't know, we could not produce the show without your support. And for that, again, would just like to say thank you to Takeda and thank you to all the supporters of the Bloodstream podcast. Amy Bradford, our next episode comes out on December 13th. We only got 2 left in 2024. What can listeners hear on the next one?
Well, we've got a great wrap up for the gene therapy segment this year. We'll kind of give, a rundown of all of the, all the stuff we learned throughout the year. So it'll just be kind of a great, cumulative segment. And then Max Feinstein is actually going to have a conversation with you. I think Max is going through some ankle stuff. Is that correct? And so he's just going to kind of share
elbow. My ankle, his elbow.
Oh, his elbow. That's right. That's right. Max,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
He's got some surgery stuff that's been on the horizons for a while. We've been talking about it. It's coming up. So I asked him if he would be willing to do a little like before, immediately after, and down the road follow-up so that we could just kind of like track that with him in real time and see what we learn. I think I teased it once before and didn't actually do the first segment yet. So this might actually be the second tease. I promise it's coming.
I mean, not to like, pontificate on it too much, but it's awesome. This is an awesome platform that Bloodstream gets an opportunity to like, hear some of these stories, specifically around some of these joint issues that you all are experiencing. So anyway, we're psyched to have Max on, and I think you guys are talking later today.
In real time.
So it's legit this time.
That is correct. Yeah, it's actually on the schedule, so we can confirm. Well, thank you, Amy. Much appreciated, and thanks to everybody who helps make the Bloodstream podcast happen every month. And with that, that is all for this episode. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already to the Bloodstream podcast wherever you listen to have that December 13th episode delivered to you the moment it goes live.
And always, y'all, please email us at mailbag@bloodstreammedia.com if you have any interest in being in some of our podcasts or our films. We are looking for stories all the time. So if you have some challenges that you've overcome, if you've got some struggles that you're working through, if you'd like to share your story, please email us at mailbag@bloodstreammedia.com. And as always, you can find me personally, you can find Patrick personally, and Bloodstream Media on social. We're on all the things.
I am your host, Patrick James Lynch.
And I am your other host, Amy Bradford.
And until next time, take self-care of yourself. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.